My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
Las Vegas is a real hub for circus performers. From Cirque du Soleil to old school Circus, if you want to see someone flying, dangling, twisting, or balancing their bodies under a spotlight, our city is the place. But at what cost? Today on CityCast Las Vegas, we talk with UNLV professor Laura Martinez. She's an aerial performer herself, but also a leading researcher on pain in the circus industry. We talk about how much these talented folks endure for our amusement and how Las Vegas can do better. Oh, and after the interview, stay around for a friend of the pod, Eric Gladstone, joining co-host Sarah Lohman for a conversation sponsored by Vegas Unstripped. They're going to talk about how that festival celebrates so many local chefs, bartenders, and popular off-strip restaurants. So stick around to learn more about it. It's Wednesday, April 16th. I'm Dayvid Figler, and here's what Las Vegas is talking about. Laura, most of our listeners aren't performers, but they've seen a circus performance in Las Vegas, I'm sure. What are the circus artists dealing with that audiences just don't see?
Hi, David. So speaking specifically about aerial performers, if you consider that you're sustaining your whole body weight on an apparatus made out of metal or fabric or any other sort of material, that's intrinsically going to have some pain associated with it. So from the very beginning, when people start to train, that pain functions almost as a gatekeeper to whether you choose to keep going and leaning into the pain or deciding, nope, this is too much for me.
Yeah, I honestly think about it now that you're saying it. Like, of course, it's got to be significant pain in all the rehearsals and just stretching your body in those kind of ways. What are some of the more painful stunts that people see when they go witness a circus?
So I would say, in my opinion, any sort of straps acts, which are, it's hard to say, they're made out of all different sorts of materials, but some of them can even be made out of just like a regular seatbelt material. So when you consider you're wrapping that around your wrists and sustaining your whole body weight, I would also say neck hangs can be quite painful. So this is when you are leaning onto like a lyra, which is basically a hoop, or any sort of metal bar, could be also done on fabric. And you're kind of leaning on the nape of your neck and holding your body weight by the nape of your neck. So that can actually lead to long-term spine issues, as well as short-term. It could also cause you to pass out if you do it for too long.
Ooh, yeah. I mean, those are the ones that get the big reactions. And I don't think that people are processing, wow, that must be so painful. That's why we're enjoying it. It just seems so difficult, and we are admiring the circus performer for being able to do something that none of us could do in the audience. You study organizational culture at UNLV. So what have you found is the culture in the circus industry around that kind of like sacrifice and pain that these performers are taking on?
So I will say that there has been a more active shift in conversation away from just embracing the pain. But part of the reason I started this research was because I was training in an aerial studio and I overheard a conversation where one of the newer students said, she was on a trapeze and said, wow, this is painful. And the coach just very nonchalantly said, yeah, circus hurts. And it was taken as this, taken for granted axiom of, yeah, this is just kind of what the culture is. Circus hurts. And if you want to do circus, you have to be able to put up with the pain.
Wow. So has it gotten better or worse over the years in Las Vegas as our city grows and even more performers come here?
I would argue that it's gotten worse just because of how much it's commodified in this city. Of course, it's the entertainment capital of the world and we love that. But at the same time, the market is just completely oversaturated. So that willingness to embrace the pain and to, take on the hurt and push through it is necessary if you want to be successful, because if not, there's somebody in line that's going to replace you.
Now, when we hear expressions like take on the hurt or that's part of the business, whatever, inevitably, I think the conversation also turns to over-reliance on medications or, maybe opioids to sort of mask that pain. I mean, what is the concern level about increased risk in medicine abuse or, non-prescribed medicine abuse in the circus industry?
I would say that's probably a something that's very prevalent. I don't know that many people talk about it very outspokenly, but I imagine that it does exist. And also, you got to figure that if you're pushing your body through these, like you said, bending in different ways and sustaining your weight on whatever body part, you're also going to be more prone to injury. And if you're over medicating, you're also going to still be enduring those injuries, probably not feeling them in the moment, which gets you through doing 10 shows a week, right? But long-term effects are going to be very short careers for these performers.
And beyond the physical pain that their bodies are taking on, I mean, we all know now the problem with addiction to these kind of drugs. I mean, is there aftercare for circus performers? Is anyone talking about that sort of thing?
Yes and no. So it depends on what company you work with, and it depends on when you are under contract. I know that companies take really good care of their people when they're under contract, but a lot of these would be considered gig workers. So once you fall outside of that coverage, then you kind of have to figure it out on your own.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not looking forward to the movie about the circus performer who got hooked on painkillers to make it through and then was sort of left abandoned in Las Vegas. I don't want to see that show. How are Las Vegas doctors suited for these circus performers? I mean, how would you rank them overall?
Oh, yes, that's a great question. So generally, the industry is not prepared to help circus artists. There have been a lot of conversations nationwide about bringing more conversation between the doctors and providers and circus performers. And there have been circus performers who have gone on to get medical degrees, because we know that when we go see a doctor, they're just not equipped with the understanding of what we do. So for example, I tore both hamstrings and doing circus acrobatics, and the sports medicine doctor told me, you should stop doing this. And it's like, well, I can't. This is my job. I'm going to continue. This is my passion. And it's more so that just knowing how to treat for these types of bodies is what's necessary to talk about.
So not only does Las Vegas need to do better in medical care for our community, we also have to be mindful that some special specialists probably need to come in for our circus performers, yeah?
Yes, absolutely.
Hi, I'm David Plotz, the CEO of CityCast. We've all set health goals: lose weight, exercise more, eat better. But without a plan, those goals often fade. That may have happened to you. It has definitely happened to me. And that's where Prolon comes in. Prolon's 5-day fasting mimicking diet gives you a science-backed, structured approach to stay on track and see real results. And now Prolon is upping their game with the new next-gen 5-day program, delivering the same science-backed benefits in a cleaner, more convenient, and more flavorful format. Prolon is a plant-based nutrition program featuring soups, snacks, and beverages designed to nourish the body while keeping it in a fasting state, triggering cellular rejuvenation and renewal. Next Gen builds on the original Prolon with 100% organic soups and teas, a richer taste, and ready-to-eat meals. Developed over decades at USC's Longevity Institute and backed by top U.S. medical centers, Prolon has been shown to support biological age reduction, metabolic health, skin appearance, fat loss, and energy. I've been doing the 5-day program, and I feel so much better. I really enjoy the tasty energy bars, the snacks and soups, and the fact that I can enjoy meals, even though the calorie count is super low. The flavors and textures are excellent. An olive oil snack here, broccoli and quinoa soup there, hibiscus tea, a yummy nut bar. It's got the benefits of a 5-day fast, but doesn't have the challenge of doing it with pure liquids. It's a system reset. And also, I know this sounds funny, but it's not. The packaging and directions are fantastic. clear and well organized and thoughtful. For a limited time, you can be first in line to experience the new Next Gen at special savings. Prolon is offering CityCast listeners 15% off site-wide, plus a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe to their 5-day program. Just visit prolonlife.com/city. That's PROLONLIFE.com/city to claim your 15% discount and your bonus gift. prolonlife.com/city.
Springfest deals are still in full swing at Lowe's. Right now, get 5 bags of Stay Green Premium Color 2 cubic foot mulch for only $10. And get up to 40% off select major appliances. Plus, save up to $300 when you buy 2 or more select GE kitchen appliances of $396 or more. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 4/16, excludes Alaska and Hawaii. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. See Lowe's.com for more details and qualifying items.
Las Vegas seems like it's a pretty big deal for circus performers. I wonder, like making it to Broadway as a musical theater actor is the pinnacle. Does Las Vegas take that high status job?
Well, it's interesting you say that because one of the participants I interviewed for my dissertation work talked about how one of the greatest successes of some of these companies have been anonymizing their performers in the way that you create a character and you choose one person to embody that character and you create all of the costuming and apparatuses for that particular person. And then inevitably they leave and they go elsewhere. So you try to replace bodies and not people. So you try to find a figure that fits with this particular iteration that you had at the job. But as a spectator, I imagine that you've never really known who the performers are that you're watching in a circus show. You know the show, you know the narrative, the main story of it, but you don't actually know who's starring in these shows. And if you think about traditional circus, the performers were the real draw of the crowd. So they would have these big advertisements and posters and whatnot. And here, you don't really see any of that. And it's because of the anonymity makes it easier to commodify a lot of these artists' bodies.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued by the anonymization aspect because you're right. I mean, we don't really know who is the star of O. That name doesn't really come. And my apologies to whoever the star performers in O are, but the names aren't household like, Penn and Teller or Carrot Top or something like that. And I think that used to be the case. You're right. Like, the Flying Ranzonis or whatever,
Right.
you would know the family and it would be like Bob Ranzoni or whatever. I'm just making up names, of course. But like as a circus performer, that aside, is Vegas still like the pinnacle, the best place to be a performer? Is that why people are coming here?
Oh, I would say so. Yes, absolutely. I know many performers who train at schools, for example, up in Montreal, where you have the National Circus School, which works closely with Cirque du Soleil to get their artists out here. And I would say 95% of the performer friends I have, the dream is to go to work for Cirque du Soleil and to be in Las Vegas. And I've known many people who travel here and move here for the purpose of getting cast in a show. And it's an upward struggle for sure.
Yeah, and it's not just Cirque du Soleil. I mean, Circus, as I mentioned, old school still has circus acts. Of course, Spiegel World, many people know Absinthe, but they have a host of shows. And then there are a lot of smaller shows. And I mean, you do see people flying around and being on these various apparatuses in a lot of different shows in Las Vegas. I remember seeing Celine Dion's show, and she had a bunch of performers in the background doing all this stuff too. And so I'm wondering if the lure of being a Vegas performer, even without a name on the marquee, makes it easier to justify working with injuries, working through the pain, because it is Las Vegas versus some other place.
That's an excellent point. And I would venture to say that, yes, indeed, if you make it here, I mean, not to sound cheesy, but if you make it here, you can probably make it anywhere. And there's so many performers who get contracts internationally and whatnot, because having Las Vegas on your CV or on your resume is going to take you a long way.
Yeah. And so that oversaturation probably makes personal care less of a priority just because it's important. Is that I'm like wincing saying that, but that sounds like it's the reality.
Yes, because if you picture, like, of course, we all use our bodies in our job with to some capacity,
Well, I know.
and
So podcasters less than almost anyone else, but sure.
no, but you're sitting down, your body's not meant to be sitting down for long hours. That's why we have all of these ergonomic sorts of things. And in circus, of course, you're using your body to the extreme. Your job is to be Superman-like. Your job is to be impressive and to do things
Mm,
that, the regular person won't be able to do. So that's why we find splits so impressive. But with splits, we have a frame of reference with Fred. Like, we know we can probably not do them, but we know what it feels like. And for
right.
a lot of these other things, we don't know what that feels like. We may not know what it feels like to hang from one arm or to twist and to roll through an apparatus. So because the job is to be impressive and to look effortless, to your point earlier, you're
Yeah.
masking a lot of that pain. You're supposed to look graceful. You're supposed to look like, oh, this is doing nothing to me. I could do this all day. That's part of the job.
Wow.
So masking goes a long way, both on stage and behind the scenes, because you also are operating in this saturated market.
Yeah. What about unions? Are circus performers here protected through any unions? Do you hear any talk of people looking to unions to get better protections in their negotiations?
So the short answer is no. There is no current union that really protects circus workers, and it goes back to them being sort of contract workers. There have been more conversations to make the industry more regulated, because there's really no government agency that oversees it. There's no organization that oversees it. A lot of the same like rigging guidelines that are used for circus performers are through OSHA,
Hmm.
which is meant for not, jumping
Industrial,
20.
not
Yeah,
artistic work. Yeah.
exactly. And when it is for artistic or theater work, it's for things like Tinkerbell, swinging through the stage, not accounting for that force that you do when you're engaging in these, really intense acrobatics. So when I've spoken to performers, that is one of the biggest conversations. How can we unionize? How can we get protected? And it really has to do with a lot of collaboration and a lot of coming together that isn't quite happening. And part of that is because performers sometimes don't feel powerful enough to advocate for themselves.
Yeah. I mean, I can imagine that with so many performers, if they did communicate with each other to become advocates for their own well-being, that they could be a real force of nature. The communities out here, do they all sort of, I don't want to say like secretly meet in back rooms, but is there a community where these conversations are openly happening, between all the different shows and the different performers from literally around the world?
Yes, I was just talking to someone the other day about putting together a little, underground guerrilla group to start to have these conversations. And, like any industry, there's probably a lot of competitiveness. You have to be careful who you talk to and whatnot. But there's definitely the need and the desire amongst performers, and then you see some of that more beautiful collaboration.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, our legislature only meets every other year. It would be fascinating if there was a conversation about, when we have boxing fights, there's all
Mhm.
these regulations to make sure that the gladiators in the ring or UFC or whatever are not hurt in ways that are in any way permanent. And yet we don't hear those conversations with our beloved, literally beloved circus performers. It seems like
Mhm.
something that the legislature should want to take up too.
I agree, and for the first time ever, I think it was last year. I can cross check this. There was a conversation in the White House, in the way of a symposium, of bringing more of those regulations and legislations to circus, because there's also no funding for circus available at a governmental level.
Yeah. So, Laura, why do you think, as an industry, circus lacks those kind of protections and rights for its workers?
Well, I think art is generally undervalued and exploited. So artists are underpaid beyond circus. I think it's various factors. I think in part it's the temporality of these workers. I hate to say it this way, but you're only going to be able to perform for so long. So maybe there's not as much focus on nurturing the longevity of performers because they want to have a certain look. So if we just go back to commodifying people's bodies and commodifying entertainment, there's so much saturation and there's so many young performers that there's just kind of this endless flux of people that are ready to take these jobs. But what that leaves is the older retired performers dealing with injuries and having to find a different source of income. So I've known people who go into real estate or massage therapy or just, an array of different jobs because they know that their careers have a timestamp on them.
Yeah. So, as a leader in the industry, does Las Vegas help artists manage their pain in appreciable ways that you can tell me about? And maybe also, what should artists be asking more for when it comes to pain management?
So I know that there are, for example, Las Vegas Circus Center, they have a PT on site that's available to take appointments and that many performers here go to because a lot of performers also train at Las Vegas Circus Center. And I do know that Cirque du Soleil and Spiegel World and, generally the bigger companies in town offer those services as well to their performers when they're under contract. So there is pain management in that sense, and that the companies are taking care of their people. But given how much entertainment they provide us with, we should do more to protect them and take care of them as a city when they're out of contract.
Do you have any stories that you've heard or personal anecdotes about artists performing through the pain and maybe the journey that they had to take?
Yes. I interviewed someone who was a human cannonball. So, you get shot out of the cannon. Maybe you've seen this.
Yeah,
And
sure. The human cannonball.
right.
Okay.
And so she had a good amount of PTSD just from being thrown out. So she landed wrong during one of the landings, and she had to hobble off stage because the spotlight was following her. So she couldn't show that she had essentially broken her ankle and had to continue with the adrenaline to finalize the act until she was able to jump backstage. At which point, one of the most interesting things that she's told me was that before the company called the paramedics, they called the wardrobe department so that they could cut her out of her costume and her boots so that the paramedics wouldn't damage it. And for her, it was this moment of, okay, so they care more about this costume than they care about my well-being.
Yeah. How heartbreaking for her. And did she wind up going back to work in that situation?
No, I think after that, she decided to opt out of her contract because there was just too much trauma involved in the experience.
Yeah. Well, Laura, this is really important work for, one of the gems of our community, which are our top-notch circus performers. So I really appreciate what you're doing and talking with us here at CityCast Las Vegas.
Thank you so much for having me.
And listener, don't go anywhere. In just a second, we've got a segment sponsored by the Vegas Unstripped Food Festival. Sarah Lohman's going to chat with Eric Gladstone about the excitement surrounding this upcoming event.
Hey, I'm Sarah Lohman, and I'm here with Eric Gladstone, the team leader of Vegas Unstripped. Eric, Vegas Unstripped is coming up. It's April 27th, and I know it's all about celebrating local chefs and their talents. So first, tell me, how are chefs and bartenders selected to participate in this event?
Thanks, Sarah. Great to be here. We really look for the most kind of acclaimed and creative chefs in the city, throughout the city. It comes from getting a lot of recommendations from different leaders and other people in the industry. It comes from just kind of dining out and seeing who's doing really interesting things, who's kind of, leading the community and whose food has popped out over the year as just doing something special and different.
And is this both on and off strip talent?
It is. The event started originally as just off strip, hence the name. And it was sort of a reaction to these events that had gone on the strip and not really included anyone locally. After a couple of years of that, and then during COVID especially, we realized that there was no need to punish the people on the strip who were really trying their best to be part of the community and to do something creative and all of these good things too. And they're all our friends and they're all part of the community. So we also include several strip chefs. Yeah, there's no geographic distinctions except you have to be in the Vegas Valley.
And I know this is a fantastic experience for food lovers, and it sounds like an amazing community event for chefs as well. And the chefs and the bartenders, they create unique dishes for this event. Can you tell me a little bit about that and some of the food that's going to be there?
That's right. And so we wanted to make it special both for the participants and for all the guests. So one of the first things that James Trees and I decided when we created this event together was that everyone had to do an original dish for the event. And we really kind of wanted it to be more of a personal expression than something that was representing whatever restaurant you were at right now. I mean, it could be, but it didn't have to be. For example, if you worked at an Italian restaurant, but you were really excited about Latin American cuisine, go ahead and do that. Do something like that. I do know James Trees is actually not making pasta, but a steakhouse chef is going to be making pasta, for example, which is not something he normally does. And Brian Howard, who's back in this year, always goes way overboard. And I think he's got some sort of dim sum idea that he's planning. Again, just like there's always surprises in this event. Sometimes they even surprise me.
I love that you mentioned community because I also know a big part of Vegas Unstripped is supporting the local community through charitable donations. So how much have you raised so far, and what are some of the organizations you're giving back to?
We created this event really to connect with community and not because we had a profit motive. We actually make a point of we're not making any money off of this. We designed the event to just basically pay for itself, and it's a way for us to kind of give back to the community. And then if we do have some money left over from paying whatever chef expenses are necessary, whatever bartender expenses are necessary, whatever is needed to do the event, if we have money left over, we give it to different local charities year after year, and we try to identify those charities that are lesser known, that maybe don't have such a great fundraising arm, that really need the help. So this year, the main beneficiaries are going to be, first of all, Help of Southern Nevada, who do an amazing job helping out people who are kind of in threatening situations or who are experiencing homelessness. And also the John Arena Foundation, which was started by John Arena of Metro Pizza, who is a participant. He's suffering from Parkinson's disease. He wanted to start a foundation to help support other people in the industry challenged with this. And just really, it's as much a resource and a gathering as it is just sort of like a foundation in terms of financial things. But we really love him and care about him. And so that was an easy decision to support him. We are also planning on donating some money to a local ProStart. ProStart is an organization that helps kids in high school. It mentors them to get into the culinary industry. And so that was very important to James in particular, that we support them.
Despite the scope of this event and the charitable donations, the tickets are priced affordably. Like there's what you're calling a pre-inflation price of $150. So how do you manage to keep the ticket prices affordable while still covering the cost of everything this event needs?
We're really proud to be able to keep the ticket price low, and we haven't changed it in 3 years. We really want to provide a value, and we find that we can do that because the math just works out that as long as we have enough money to pay the expenses, that really helps a lot. We do get some donations. We get a lot of support from different organizations in terms of ingredients and stuff like that. Chefs want to pitch in too. Basically, the calculus is we just make it work. We get enough people to make it work, and that's all we're trying to do.
Okay, this sounds like a party. So what do attendees get with their ticket?
Everything.
Everything.
I don't want to call it an all-you-can-eat event because that's not necessarily the spirit of
Sure.
it. But basically, yeah, once you're in, you're in.
Yeah.
Everything you can sample, everything you want to drink, but everything that we're presenting is included, and there's free parking too.
Free parking. I know our listeners love free parking.
Yeah.
So how do we get tickets?
Very easy. So just go to vegasunstripped.com. That's one word, vegasunstripped.com.
Eric Gladstone, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Sarah. It's been a pleasure.
Vegas Unstripped is April 27th, starting at 6 p.m. Take it from me. Get there early and go get your tickets at vegasunstripped.com. We'll have that link for you in our show notes as well, so you're just a click away. Thank you for listening.
And that's all for today here on CityCast Las Vegas. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend? You could also rate our show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our morning newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Till then, stay lucky. Cirque Soleil, Cirque du Soleil. Do. It's do. Oui.